Did you know that there might have been a reason that Scar didn't just kill Simba himself back when the lion was just a cub? There are actually a few theories surrounding why Simba's uncle wouldn't have killed him with his own two paws on the day that he killed King Mufasa, but they all line up with the type of character that Scar was in the movie. That doesn't mean that there was any redeeming factor to the villainous lion, though, and he still can't be forgiven for introducing most of us to our first on-screen death as kids. But still, it's hard not to be curious, right? There was literally nothing stopping Scar from killing Simba when he walked up to him at the gorge, but for some reason he let him live. Mufasa, the only major threat that Scar ever claimed to face, was dead at his feet, and yet he allowed his son, the prince and heir to the throne, to simply run away with a guilty lie weighing on his heart. And I know you can argue that he planned on using the hyenas to hunt Simba down before he allowed him to run away, but that seems like more work than him finishing the job himself right then and there. He was a full-grown male lion, and even though he looked emaciated and sickly, he easily could have killed a young cub like Simba. Doing just that wouldn't even be anything new for a lion, since apparently in the wild, a lion will kill all of the cubs in a pride that isn't his when he takes over. And after learning that, I couldn't help but wonder if Scar really wanted to become the king so bad that he would kill his own brother. Why didn't he just kill Simba when he walked up on him alone in the gorge? Believe it or not, the biggest factor in this may have been the simple fact that he didn't plan on Simba to still be alive in the first place. There's a good chance that Scar fully expected Simba to be killed in the stampede long before Mufasa could get there to save him. That was most likely his plan all along. Not only would it kill two birds with one stone, so to speak, but Scar would also be able to keep his hands clean of the crime and make it look like an accident that couldn't have been helped. So when he walked up to make sure that his brother was actually dead, there was a good chance that he was shocked to see his young nephew still breathing, and that forced the villainous lion to think on his feet again, which meant figuring out another way to kill Simba. Still, after the shock of Simba's survival had faded, don't you think that Scar would have just found and killed him anyway? Well, if you put yourself in the lowly and cunning mindset of Scar, perhaps he was already holding his new position as king in high regard, and as far as honor goes, killing a child as his first act would be unbecoming of a king. Think about it. It's clear that Scar wasn't against murder or killing in general. Exhibit A is his brother Mufasa, but now that he was the king, he couldn't possibly be the one to do the killing. That was never the king's job. He always had a hunting party to do that for him. Scar, on the other hand, used to scavenge for food and scraps like the hyenas he hung out with. So now that he saw himself as the new king, maybe he finally felt like he didn't have to work for anything anymore. When he wanted something, he could just tell one of his loyal subjects to do it. In this case, though, that something happened to be the murder of his nephew, and the subjects they ordered to do it were his trusted but bumbling hyenas. This is the least likely of the scenarios, though, because whether it's becoming of a king or not to kill his nephew, there may have been another factor at play. Come to think of it, have you ever seen Scar as an actual killer who's ready to stain his paws red with blood? Because of the way that Disney portrayed his character, even though he's extremely evil, it didn't seem like Scar was the type of lion to literally get blood on his hands, or in this case, paws. I mean, it's clear that Scar is a killer when you consider Mufasa's body lying in the gorge, but he himself hadn't personally killed anyone. Sure, his actions have directly resulted in the death, and he's given orders for his hyenas to kill and set traps that put Mufasa in mortal danger before, but he himself has never directly killed anyone as far as Disney has revealed. Even in the book Lion King: Tale of Two Brothers, when Scar, or Taka as he was called at that time, tried to kill Mufasa, he didn't actually do it himself. Much like in the movie, he simply ensured that his brother would be put in serious harm's way. In the book, Scar set up a situation at the watering hole that saw Mufasa facing off against a massive Cape buffalo named Boma. Mufasa managed to barely escape as he trapped the buffalo in a nearby ravine, but that doesn't negate what Scar was attempting to do. He was trying to have Mufasa killed, but he didn't want to stain his own paws. And if he did that with Mufasa, a lion that he grew up to hate over the course of many years, it's doubtful that he would want to sully himself with the blood of his nephew. And you have to remember, Scar didn't necessarily hate Simba, he just despised that Simba, having been born, took away his position as the heir to the throne. That being said, Scar wanted nothing more than to be the king, and surely he wanted it bad enough that he could quickly kill Simba and clean his paws like it had never happened. So why didn't he just do it himself and call it a day? In a similar tone to Scar not wanting to get blood on his paws, he didn't come off as the type of character who enjoyed doing his own dirty work. There were multiple times throughout The Lion King where Scar was clearly the master manipulator and orchestrator of villainy, but he was never the one to actually do the deed. When he wanted Simba and Nala killed in the elephant graveyard at the beginning of the movie, he didn't do it himself. He employed the hyena trio Shenzi, Banzai, and Ed. The same goes for when he killed Mufasa, only substituting the hyenas for a horde of stampeding wildebeests that were sent into a frenzy by the hyenas. In in both of those scenarios, Scar was the man behind the curtain pulling all the strings, but he was never the character that was actually getting his paws dirty. And when you think about it, that could be the exact reason why he didn't kill Simba himself. It wasn't that he was too afraid or too attached, but simply that Scar never wanted to get his hands dirty. He had people to do that for him. After years of planning and working to get rid of his older brother finally paid off, he couldn't be bothered with a lowly job. But even if Scar was planning on killing Simba himself, why didn't he just have the hyenas attack Simba there instead of giving him the chance to run away, thinking it was his fault that his father was dead? Come to think of it, if he had killed Simba and left his body with Mufasa's, there's actually a much bigger chance that the rest of the lions would have discovered Scar's charade, effectively ending his reign. There's almost no doubt that one or multiple members of the Pride went to the gorge to check on Mufasa's body to not only confirm his death, but to also make sure that Scar was telling the truth about how he died. Now, that's not something that's ever spoken about in the movie, but it's hard to imagine that these lions just took Scar at his word that their king was dead. You can't just walk into a kingdom and announce, "The king is dead, I'm the king now," and expect everyone to be like, "Yes, my liege." But lucky for Scar, if the lions did do what they should have done and investigated Mufasa's body, they would see that he was in fact killed in a stampede. And if they happened to find the claw marks on his front paws where Scar dug in, he could have probably lied and said he was just trying to help him up the ledge, but he couldn't hold on due to this cliff being too steep. That story would be super different if he had killed Simba, though. If Scar had murdered his nephew in cold blood and left his body there with Mufasa, there would be no accounting for the wounds that he suffered. Not to mention, Scar's scent would be all over the body, so the other lions would know he was involved almost immediately. And even if Scar hadn't been the one to kill Simba and say his hyenas did it for him, he would still have to somehow explain why or how the hyenas managed to get a hold of the little prince. In the end, all fingers or paws would have been pointing at Scar right off the bat, and the Lionesses would have revolted just like they did when they found out the truth at the end of the movie. In other words, Scar most likely knew that he couldn't kill Simba himself, and he definitely couldn't have killed him at the scene of Mufasa's death. Otherwise, there'd be no chance that he would keep the proverbial crown. And that would explain why he convinced Simba to run away after blaming Mufasa's death on the cub. Once he knew that the child was far enough away from the scene of the crime, he coldly sent the hyenas to hunt Simba down and kill him. It's a good thing that the cub was so spry, and that by a series of certain events managed to get away and meet up with a meerkat and warthog who taught him about the true meaning of life, Hakuna Matata. As mentioned though, these are all just theories, and I'm curious to hear what you think. Why didn't Scar just kill Simba when he realized that he was still alive in the gorge? Be sure to let me know in the comments below.